All right, welcome everyone to AI Publisher Response Live, or much shorter version of that, AI Live or Alive. We're having fun with this. This is our video podcast talking about everything related to AI and publishing. It's just obviously a needed conversation to talk through a lot of these particular pieces, and we're covering the gamut. And today we're going to talk about bots and the impact and so forth. Couple native commercials, if you will. Just the fact that we've got some events that are kind of coming up. We actually had yesterday a session. Matt Rance led a session on kind of vibe coding, or I should say AI automation. Vibe coding sounds so cool, and yet vibe coding is like when you're playing around with these systems. And it's like if you're really doing operations work, like I think AI automation is just definitely a better way to put it. And so we had a session on that yesterday, which was really kind of cool, diving into N8N. We have some more sessions coming. So James Strang, I know he's here. We're going to start to announce some dates for that, and that'll be in the newsletter. So make sure you get the newsletter. But we are going to, really get time and opportunity to have people talk through what systems they're connecting and how they're going to work on it. And so that's one key piece. I'll also add that we added James is going to be actually doing two sessions at Navigator New York on May 5th. So that's our, the Navigator event, where again, it's going to be an introduction as well as some things you could do as ad ops on AI automation or AI engineering, if you will. That's not the only topic at Navigator New York that's going to be talking about things related to AI. Certainly going to hit agentic, but also cool thing is that we've got as our keynote now can announce it. Katie Drummond from Wired. Wired is the magazine owned by Condé, and talk about someone who's got an audience that's like leading this whole thing, and at the same time having to deal with the how do you create the editorial and like automate and yet at the same time kind of still remain human in all of this piece. It's some of the conversations that I'm looking forward to. The day after Navigator New York is AI Publisher Response. So that's a full day of it. I'm going to just kind of pull up a couple notes here. Um, Jacob Ward, someone else is deciding what you publish, talking about, again, trying to chase the algorithm. Jody Ginsburg, the human cost of telling the truth. Why are we trying to figure out like where people fit in all this? Journalists who are on the front lines, right? And then really the truth shall set you free. Again, some thoughts from Ovetta Sampson, and she's been focused in this space for some time, which is pretty cool. I should actually add as another keynote, forgot that we've got it as this, John Shahada, who is an SEO expert. He does his own conference on SEO and geo or AEO. I don't know what to call things anymore. But he's also going to be presenting. We've got revenue predictability, right? How do you do that in this particular world? Creating content without losing your soul. Trust. We've got some research that we're going to be sharing specifically for this event. Does AI bring brands and publishers together? Is one of our topics. Some of the legal aspects of things. Building an AI-enabled editorial operation, right? Content-focused marketplaces. Rewiring advertising from top to bottom. Okay. The influence of influencers or content creators to block or not to block bots. We'll talk about that more with Gavin. Trust in a human, how do you create trust in human created content? And ad ops is a good place to start with Dennis Cologne's going to be helping with that. If he's available, I'm going to have him come join. And I didn't even get to finish the whole day, but I kind of feel like I want to move on to talking with Gavin. So thanks, Dennis, for joining. So Gavin, I'm going to throw it to you. I'd love to hear your origin story, and then we can kind of dive into the bot piece of things.
Yeah, totally. Thank you for having me. So yeah, I'm Gavin King, founder of Known Agents. That's knownagents.com. But basically what we are is a platform that lets publishers and other online businesses track, control, and optimize for AI agent and bot traffic. I think we can dig into some of those categories a bit as we go along here, but I think the headline that many people here might already know that, your traffic isn't just humans anymore. It never really was. Bots have been around since the 90s with search engine crawlers and these sort of like traditional search engine bots. But recently it's, 40%, 50% of traffic across the board. So bot traffic in general has been ramping up. And within that, more and more of it is AI, whether that's AI assistants or AI data scrapers. Again, we can dig into all of these categories on this show here, but that's what we do. So we're helping online businesses transition from this gap where the internet is not only just a human place, but more and more a bot place, and that's kind of a new customer segment to control for.
So is
Um,
that what, when you were a small kid, that's what you wanted to grow up and do, is to count bots? Or I mean,
yeah,
how
yeah.
did you get into this, and what's the story behind the company? I know it's changed names and so forth.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. So my background's in engineering. I was managing the app performance org at Instagram before this. I was there for 7 years, both as on the manager side and on the engineering side. That was full-time management when I was there. So kind of just scratched the coding itch that I had. I built this as a side project. So originally it was called Dark Visitors. Many people may have heard that name.
Hmm.
And what that was just a list of every known bot on the internet. So we tried to basically categorize every bot. We took a bunch of data sources in. We analyzed our own traffic of websites, or I guess not us, it's me at this point, just me. And we tried to find every single bot that we could, and then we put that up as a web page. It was called Dark Visitors, not because we had an opinion on whether bots are good or bad, but more because it was just hidden traffic. Like people weren't paying attention
Right.
to this. It was like, dark matter or something. It's kind of just like a cool name. And yeah, we put that up and then that sort of went viral on Hacker News. So there's like this forum website for engineers that it's almost like a Reddit where posts can get upranked. And someone else posted it and it went very viral. It kind of hit the top of that leaderboard. And a lot of people signed up. They said, "Hey, this is very valuable information just as a reference, but what do I do with this? How do I start blocking these bots? How do I see if they're visiting my website?" And yeah, over time, started adding new features based on kind of what people were requesting, and then eventually it made sense for me to quit my job at Meta and take this as a full time, like as an actual business. Once there's sort of product market fit, and more people were signing up. So these days, there's thousands of websites connected, a bunch of different kind of customer segments from the publisher industry to e-commerce to universities to tech companies, because everyone cares about bots. Everyone thinks about them in a very kind of different way. But again, we can dig into that,
Yeah. Well, I
here.
mean, I think that that's it, right? I think, and maybe we'll tie into your engineering background. I mean, in terms of, I'm thinking obviously every analytics tool that I've used is is clearing out all the bots to tell me what the humans are doing, and you're
Right,
kind of doing here the opposite of that. But what does it kind of take to track? What are the things and ways that you actually have to do that so that you could do it? Because and I'm maybe jumping ahead a question here. I want to answer that piece, but certainly
yeah,
bots, some nefarious bots are obviously trying to look like they're human. So that's
right,
obviously something you have to kind of think about as well. But just talk about like
totally.
what goes into like actually tracking the bots, what it takes.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so that's what's kind of crazy is that if bots are half of your traffic, maybe you're using GA or some other analytics tool to analyze half of your traffic, but people are just totally blind to this other 50%. Like I said, it's getting more and more important. These traditional analytics platforms, they're actually incapable of measuring that bot traffic because the vast majority of these bots don't run JavaScript. And like Google Analytics, you put in your tag manager, it's all JavaScript based, right? So if the bots aren't running JavaScript, they're not being tracked. So the actual way that you implement known agents on your website, it plugs into your CDN, whether that's Cloudflare or Fastly or even WordPress. There's like direct API options. So it plugs in from your backend. So you can kind of get a global view of all your traffic, regardless of whether they have cookies enabled, whether they're blocking JavaScript, whether they're even running JavaScript. So we're just positioned in your tech stack in a better place where you just have kind of a more bird's eye view that, yeah, literally these other things can't give you visibility into. So with Google Analytics and with Known Agents, you have like the full coverage, like full visibility into every type of visitor on your website.
Yeah, but I know I don't look it, but I'm old enough to remember when we used to count hits on a website, right? And so what you're basically saying is that you're now tracking hits and then going, these are the bots, and forget this human traffic. I'm focused on
Yeah,
the bot traffic. Yeah, that's
exactly. Yeah, we're
funny.
filtering out the humans. It's the opposite. Yeah.
So maybe, and I think, I'm going to definitely pull up your site and talk to it. in terms of this, but like you've not only are identifying like that it's bot traffic, but
Hmm.
you're identifying who the bot is and some of the other aspects around what it is that they do.
Yep.
Uh, so are most bots like forthcoming with that information? Do they kind of announce themselves and say, "Hey, this is who I am," and or have markers to it so that you're clear on that, or is there like
Yep.
what is that like?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's kind of maybe two ways to think about bots. One is like the identified bots, and then the unidentified bots. When we're talking about 40% of your traffic is bots, like that's just the identified bots. So there is a long tail of unidentified bots. They're pretending to be humans, like they're not setting their user agent, or they're using some kind of like, botnet to kind of disguise their traffic. So it is both. Mostly of what we focus on is like the known agents, like the identified agents, because that's kind of where we think the puck is going. Like more and more companies are playing by the rules, adopting protocols like WebBot auth, which some people might have heard of, or kind of setting the user agents, following robots.txt rules. We have data that says that people are trending in that direction. So that's kind of where we're focused and helping people manage that traffic. Obviously, there's tools like your CDN that help you block that long tail of unidentified traffic, and we actually have some tools as well. But this is more for the latter. And within that, like I said, there's a huge diversity of types of agents. The biggest one is like AI data scrapers. That is now like the second biggest category of bots on the internet. Search engine crawlers are the biggest still, but AI data scrapers are the second one, followed by AI search engine, like AI search crawlers, which are indexing for future links in responses and AI chats. And then AI assistants, which are you're in ChatGPT, you're asking it something, it puts a link to a website, it's sending out its own bot to kind of visit that website, make sure it has the most up to date content. There's these AI data providers, which is this new kind of category of bot that's coming out. If you follow Matthew Scott Goldstein on LinkedIn, he's been doing a deep dive into these recently on all
Mhm.
these different companies. There's these AI vibe coding bots. So if you're coding something, these bots are maybe checking on documentation. They're going visiting, tech documentation to make sure it's implementing code correctly. So there's a ton going on within this. And again, depending on what business you're in, you think about these in very different ways. So in publishing, AI data scraping, AI search crawling, AI assistants are huge. And you can see all of them, their breakdowns, what companies they're coming from, what pages they're visiting, all of that.
Yeah, so I'm going to just share the page, and I know that for some people this is an audio podcast, so I will more kind of describe, but like this literally just goes through all the various agents, and you have the ability of like segmenting on the types, but you've got from Amazon to the Googles, and quite the list here as you go down, right?
Yep.
And so
Yeah. If
yeah,
you
I
click into
mean,
any of these, there's also detail into let's maybe scroll up to one of the AI assistants. That could be a good
all right,
this
yeah,
is a vibe coding one. So if you click on like Claude user or scroll down a bit in the light blue category.
light blue, okay.
Yeah, click like ChatGPT user. That's a good example. Yeah, so on these, this is all a free reference. This database updates every day. We actually have our own AI that scans the combined traffic of all of the websites connected to known agents to find new agents to do a passive categorizing them. That obviously goes through a human review process to make sure all their research is correct, but then it's added. But we make that all publicly available. So you can see the type of this bot, you can see the company that runs it, you can see where it's coming from. So it's coming from the US. You can see
Mhm.
the percentage of other top websites that are blocking this bot. So 15% of websites are blocking ChatGPT user, top
Let me know if I'm
categories that
going
it
too fast.
visits.
I'm sitting
No,
here
this is good.
as I'm
Yeah. And
poking.
now like an FAQ. So this is actually really important. So if you're thinking about these bots, they're very different. I think people see the word AI in a bot's name, they assume it's bad. Sometimes they're good. If it's an AI search crawler, it could be sending you traffic. So we have an FAQ section, all these pages that say, should I block this bot? How should I be thinking about this? What are the trade-offs? Just so you could be informed about this, because I see all the time people are blocking bots that they don't actually want to block. And that's hurting their business.
So we should talk about that. I think the one thing that's really interesting here, one, so rarely does someone actually give an opinion. So I really kind of appreciate that you're kind of calling that out. It's just like something where, you know, um, I just kind of feel like everyone kind of plays the I don't want to say anything here. It's your choice.
Yeah,
And it's like kind of need the advice on that. I mean, which we could kind of dive into, right? And
sure.
let me stop sharing there for a second. I was going to show. Oh, the global insights. Yeah, let me go to that real quick, and then
Yep.
let's go back to um, diving in and talking about that. So let's see. So you also not only create have that list, but you also have overall trends here.
Right.
Um, so
Exactly. Yep. So this is what you'll, if you hook your website up to known agents, you'll get all of these specifically for your website. Plus, obviously, a ton more breakdowns into all of this. But this is just high level, the average of everyone connected to this. So you can see things like, yeah, what are the top bots? What are the top categories? So yeah, I guess if you look at most active agents here, you can see Googlebot and BingBot. Those are the top two. That's obviously expected. Search engine crawlers are still huge. But then the next couple ones are AI related. So Meta External Agent, that's Meta's AI data scraper. Meta
mhm.
Web Indexer, that's their AI search crawler. GPT Bot, that's a data scraper. Applebot, that's a search engine crawler or AI search engine crawler. So these are very real. And again, this was not the case a couple of years ago. These are now in the top five bots, but their traffic is just like ramping up pretty significantly.
Yeah, it's going to show. So yeah, like that makes sense. Again, by the way, if anyone has any questions, I'm going to show you. I'm happy to just throw up here real quick. This is Beeler.Tech because I'm using their browser. Let's see, and I don't have it all set up. Hold on. Nope, we're not going to do that again. Oh wait, I can do this. Hold on a second. That's what everyone tunes in really for me is just mess up my thing here. All right, let's just share a different screen. There we go. All right. Let me just double check, see what you all are seeing. So you should be seeing, right, crawlers and scrapers.
Yep.
All right, cool. Yeah. So here's the thing, Beeler.Tech, right? It's
Yeah,
been
we see your
running
whole
this.
screen right now, not just the Chrome screen, if that's okay.
Amazing. That's awesome. That's not quite what I mean to do, but let's not that I think there's anything else, but just
There you
there we
go.
go.
Perfect.
All right.
Sweet.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Thanks for the this is kind of what's going on literally with Beeler.Tech, which, quite interestingly enough here, Pedalbot. I mean, I guess there's a piece of this of going like what's important and what's not here. The fact that the number
Hmm.
one is Pedalbot, I shouldn't be sitting there going like, wait, I've got to change my strategy here. It's just that's the one that's hitting us the most. And
Yep.
Pedalbot, right? So Pedalbot is
Exactly. Yeah,
right.
it's a AI search crawler. So yeah, so your top bot is an AI bot, right? So this is from Huawei. It's an AI search crawler from Huawei. It's interesting. It's looking at your privacy policy in terms of use the most. So I don't know what that means. Um, but
I
yeah, it is for some
that's
AI purpose.
that's a little concerning. Either we have a really good privacy policy and they're like, wow, we could learn a lot, or they're probing. Who knows? And
Right,
then
right. But these are the types of insights that I think people are like, oh, like my Cloudflare has this. But these are the types of insights that doesn't have it. As general trends, they track like 15 bots. We're tracking 3,000, and we have these types of super, super granular breakdowns where you can spot stuff like this.
yeah,
Otherwise, you're kind of flying blind.
I like that the TikTok spider is up there. That means how cool we are.
Do you post on
I actually
TikTok? Like,
no.
okay, yeah, I'm curious. That one's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Right, but you get to see obviously
Hmm.
something kind of picked up on it, and now
Yep.
it's tracking across all that.
Yep.
Pretty wild. Pretty wild.
Totally.
So yeah, so I mean, again, so from one perspective, and this is like my thought, like for everyone, which is, I mean, first of all, this isn't the only solution that's out there that does this, right? I mean, I'm not going to make you say bad things about your competitors, but there are you if you don't do this, you have zero picture as to what's actually kind of happening. And I feel like not knowing, like, so again, like I'm not able to do anything with Pedalbot. It is what it is. If it were so much, I might sit there and say, I'm going to block it from a cost perspective, but it's
Hmm.
probably costing me 10 cents a month how much they're hitting me, right? Like I probably even can't even measure it, right?
Yeah.
So knock yourself out of my privacy policy. Very curious as to what you're doing there. But I think the other part of it, though, is to start to understand um, look at this way. One way I could look at what I saw there was Claude and others were not very high on that list. Or I
Hmm.
could go into them and say, they're not seeing my site or they're not indexing my site. So kind of cutting. I don't
Right.
want to jump ahead to the optimizing piece, but the first part is like I need
Oh,
the
let's talk about it.
analytics to
Yeah,
to kind of see where that is. So the next kind of
exactly.
so the next question on that is like everyone, and I'm one of them that is very much thinking that the future is going to be block all, have an allow list type of
Mm,
approach. So in other words, you even kind of mentioned it that there's a lot of bots that are, I don't know why they're hitting my site. They're not identifying themselves. And
yeah.
there are bad actors. The MSG stuff talked about that, right? Like some of those
Hmm.
people are reselling your data,
Right.
paying you nothing.
Hmm.
So that is to me an underlying thing that I want publishers to think about. And yet it isn't as easy as just turning off the switch.
Yes,
Um, I mean, I guess it
totally.
is, except for the fact that you will then not have any traffic coming your way. You're not going to show up and be cited or whatever. Can you
Yeah.
talk about what I mean, you actually have in these stats who's blocking whom and whatever. What
Hmm.
are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So let's talk about blocking. We can get into the optimization stuff later. But yeah, I mean, blocking's hard. Like it's almost impossible. I think the advice I give publishers is assume that your stuff is going to get scraped. Like it's just there's asymmetric difficulty and asymmetric risk in being a scraper versus someone who's trying to defend against scraping. Um, for example, if you need to scrape a website, if you're a publisher, you have to block it every single time perfectly, and the scraper just has to get through once. And if they get through once, they have everything, right? Same thing with difficulty. The worst that can happen with them is that they get an error message. The worst thing that can happen to you is you mess it up and block a real user, right? So that's meaningful. Um, so I do want to get into that with the optimization stuff. Is like assume that like with that assumption, what does a world look like where you're leaning more into things like other types of pieces of your business? But we'll talk about that later. For blocking right
Yeah.
now, I am encouraged by the fact that, like I said, a lot of these bigger companies are playing by the rules. They're starting to play by the rules more. All of the big AI companies, they do have bots. Either there's a bot dedicated toward that purpose, like GPT bot, that is like a AI data scraping bot. Um, Apple, Google, they have not different bots, but they have an identifier you can put in your robots.txt. It's like Apple bot extended or Google extended that say, just don't like, we're going to call it Googlebot, but if you don't want to use for AI scraping, put this identifier in your robots.txt, and then we'll not use it for that purpose. So that does kind of make sense because, Google, in this case, Google, like they already have all the data. It doesn't make sense for them to crawl it all again with like a different bot. That's just kind of crazy. It's a huge waste of compute and electricity for them. But they are like doing these things, right? So the hard part now is how do you actually update your robust.txt? How do you keep up to date with all these new companies, all the new bots that they have, all these new identifiers that they have? So that is one thing we do is we have like a managed robust.txt where it will add a section to it. You kind of give us control for it. You say, hey, I want to block all AI data scrapers, and we'll update it automatically. So as new things are added to our database, with our AI agents,
Yeah.
it will update on your website as well. So all you have to do is set it and forget it. I talked to a lot of publishers. They have a weekly meeting talking about their robots.txt. They invite everybody. It's a huge waste of time. So just having this automated is saving you a ton of time and money. So that is one of the biggest things we do. But obviously, like your robots.txt is voluntary. There is still a bunch of bad actors who will get through, but I do see the world kind of going more in that direction, just being able to express your intent and then people, honoring that.
Yeah, and there's a
Yeah, go
lot of
ahead.
pieces there. There's a lot of pieces to dive into there, and I will just say that
Totally.
if anyone is meeting weekly to talk about the bots that visit your site, please be a guest on my on this podcast because I'd literally love to hear that conversation. Doesn't sound like a lot of fun. I mean, again, if you're at IT and this is part of what you do, shouldn't say it that way, but there's a part where I kind of find that that to be somewhat crazy. But I get it. But like I think your point about the robots at THC, like, so, I think we're moving to this world. And one of the reasons why I kind of have that block allow part again is
Yeah.
to, and I say that without, and here's the thing, like we have a session at AI Publisher Response where Lindsay Van Kirk, who at People has been kind of key to their actually doing that part. Um,
Mm,
and I remember it was very easy, like when it was talked about at IEBALM, it was like, yeah, let's block the bots. And some people were saying that. I'm like, feels like you
right.
got to do your homework first. And Lindsay was like, 100%, again, like you don't want to block real people
Yep.
and
Yep.
whatever. But where I'm going with that is it feels this robots.txt is voluntary. It
Hmm.
feels like I think where you're saying in terms of a direction here, and I'm gonna make some assumptions here, or maybe it's a little even hopeful that the companies that are taking from publishers right now, they're taking it because one, there's this kind of open use of content and it's there and it's just a means of consumption, if you will,
Right.
to kind of pull that in there. I think those dynamics are going to have to change. I mean, if your numbers showed it, right? The amount of traffic coming from the LLMs remains as what
Right.
it is. Well, hey, you were the last robot that hits my website, turn off the lights. Fuck
Hmm.
you. Sorry. I didn't mean to pull that into your thing, but like this is the stuff that gets me like riled up is just like
Yeah.
I think of it as an act of stealing, but at the same
Right.
time, I haven't locked any of my doors. And if anything, I'm encouraging more people to kind of come in. So there's a
Yeah.
piece of this of going like, okay, figuring out the right lines on which to block, to your
Hmm.
point, using systems that can help me so I'm not playing whack-a-mole trying to
Right.
chase down every single thing, but to sit there and
Hmm.
try and create that. And again, like the more we know that there are certain bots that are for nefarious reasons, at least shut one door while working on the others and so forth. So I feel like there's a
Yeah.
kind of progression. While I feel like the major actors are going to realize that they've been farming on our land here,
Hmm.
or whatever analogy you want to use, and at some point we have to be compensated,
Right.
right? And I
100%.
think that so it's just not today because we one haven't come with that model isn't there yet. I think obviously
Yes.
IB is working on that and so forth.
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
I just went on
I
the whole thing, but please dive in wherever
no,
you want to take it.
totally. No,
Answer
that's
some
exactly
questions.
right. Yeah, I think that's exactly right. It's like I'm preaching the choir here, maybe, but there is this kind of vicious cycle right now. It's like the AI companies need publishing, they need content creators because that's what they train their AI on. And because of that, like content creators, they need to also be compensated, or else they're not going to make content. If they don't make content, they can't train the ads. So there is a vicious cycle that we're in right now. As you said, there's a lot of people trying to help with the incentive structure there, which is going to be very key to this whole thing. Um, I guess my whole point is if there's a carrot way to do it rather than a stick way to do it, I think that is probably going to be the right solution if that exists. But again, visibility is like a huge piece of this. So that's one piece. You mentioned like doing an allow list instead of a block list. That's also an interesting concept that I've seen people kind of go in that direction where either it's like literally behind a paywall or some other content, or you have something like an MCP endpoint that's like purely for agents, right? So your content, you have
Right,
some database, some proprietary data set that's locked behind some MCP endpoint. And then you can just, as agents come up to that endpoint, say, hey, can I access this? You can, with these new protocols like WebBot Auth, cryptographically be like, is this ChatGPT user? Is this Claude user? Are they who they say they are? Or are they spoofing their user agent or misidentifying themselves? And because people are adopting these protocols, that's now possible. So it is like a lock and key situation. So yeah, that's also another option. I think some of the
yeah,
business model has to shift where maybe it means putting more of your most important content not up on the open web, but behind some kind of subscription or behind some kind of access mechanism. So I also think things kind of have to shift in terms of how businesses operate and how they expose their data.
I agreed. I mean, I heard there's one article that's out there, kind of critical one of like just how inefficient actually crawling HTML pages is, right? Like 90% plus is wasted on reading through CSS and whatever else is on the
Right.
page, right? So
Exactly.
why not, again, if we're going to feed the platforms, provide it with what they are, it's actually a point of leverage, right? I
Right.
think that there's a piece of sitting there going like, hey, I can actually make this so that it's actually easier for you and
Hmm.
formatted the way you want to. And then we get into a whole world of, again, how do you feed these engines what they need, what they want?
Right.
And we, because of our authority with our content, that has value, right? Because we,
Totally. Yes.
a publisher can kind of do that. Question that
Yep.
came up is, does known agents analyze non-HTML source hits?
Yeah, so we
Eh,
we right now filter like if it's hitting like a CSS file or a JavaScript file, we filter those out. So right now it is just like page views. We do have, all the data depending on how you're integrating, but yeah, it's mostly right now for just page views, and then also we're getting into these MCP endpoints that I just mentioned.
Got it. Got it. James, you want to talk to more of that point? Just say yes, and I'll add you to jump in. I see your hand is up, but I don't know whether you want to be on screen or not. I guess that's a yes. All right,
Yeah,
here
so thumbs
comes
up.
James. And give it a second.
Okay.
James, it's Friday afternoon and we're on a Zoom together. This is like old times.
I know. This is the good old days. I asked the question, and I one of the things that I've been looking at is um, common, like you're right, like AI scrapers, they can't get HTML very efficiently. I
Mm,
have a scraper and I've been working on like how to best get HTML, and part of it is like I don't want to spend AI credits and tokens on every single like piece of this. So I created like an option
hmm
to get around it. But one of the ways that I've been able to get a ton of content, and I say this as someone who's actually on the publisher's side who wants to block this, is through open endpoint APIs. And like one example would be a website that we probably all know, adexchanger.com, is hosted on WordPress. WordPress is an open API, and I can get all their content all at once in batches of 100 pages at a time. And within like 5 hits, I get 500 pages of content. And I was wondering if that's something that you can detect and potentially like surface to publishers.
Yeah, totally. I mean, so for those WordPress endpoints, I actually saw your post on that, and that was awesome. I commented on it. But so those endpoints, they seem to be WordPress specific. I'm actually wondering, like, why are those even exposed in the first place? There might be some good reason, but I think like if we can attack the root cause rather than the symptom, I think that might be the best way to approach this. So maybe we need to talk with the WordPress people, because I don't know why all those things are out there.
Well, yeah, it's open by default, and that's so one of the things I did was I created a plugin to close it to make it like
Hmm.
of my I just said why not just make like a pub tools plugin that people can just download and put on their site.
Yep.
I did that, but as part of like this, I did it because it was like a big problem. Like I actually like one of the like someone who I won't name, who's not Rob, who was hosting events in the industry, and I queried their API endpoint for all the PDFs they had on their WordPress site. I found sponsor proposals that they had somehow in their WordPress media library because I guess they had made like sponsor specific pages. And I was able to see, oh, this is how much they're requesting their sponsors pay for all these different parts of the event. And I
Mm,
was like, oh, well, that's a big chunk of money. So when they do sponsor, I know how much they paid. This was like a big risk to them, and I did reach out and see if they would be willing to pay me to close that loop, and they closed it without paying me. But that's fine. People just don't realize that these things are open,
yeah.
and that like, anyone can go and crawl this stuff all at
Well,
once.
obviously we've sitting here talking about bots, and I think where you're going with that, James, right? For everyone to kind of like tie together is again like digitally the way that people are able to access all of your stuff. And keep in mind, like what else happened this week? What Claude or Anthropic just was like, oh, by the way, we just happen to have a thing that can just break into every single system and whatever, and just take over. But it's going to be fine because we're not going to release it. And then they're going to share it. I'm sorry, Gavin. You probably know these people, and I talk about them in this
I
in this
do.
way, this kind of anger. Well, no, but look at like I mean, listen. Um,
No, I'm
there's
kidding.
this well, but there's a piece of it, right? Of like the what we all see is the opportunity of what AI can do. I mean, it
Right.
just the internet, the way the internet is today, is not what I was hoping for. So I'm
Mm,
good with us rethinking through how content gets into people's hands and
Yeah,
and
yeah.
what is even possible. Like right now, all we're really doing is kind of replicating these things. Okay, great. Um, we have to figure out business models around that, and that's the core thing that I'm
Right.
very much focused on.
Yeah.
But there is this piece of it of going like people's code and what they're writing is going to search for every possible thing that they can know from you.
Hmm.
And it's not, the good guys are gonna like, or are gonna just use what you put at your front door, and others are gonna look for weaknesses. And so
Yeah. Yeah.
maybe we do need to have weekly meetings where we talk about what's hitting your site, because there's a piece of it that's really cybersecurity. And I think that
Exactly.
that's a whole other level of this that we don't
Right.
often talk about.
Right, because
Yeah,
that's a risk for not only just bots, but just for you. That's just a cybersecurity risk, right? Just having your stuff exposed when you shouldn't, regardless of whether it's a bot accessing it or a human bot accessing it. That's actually what that Anthropic model does. Is it was finding things like this and then reaching out to some of these bigger companies to help close them. That would have affected many people. So obviously, AI is good in some ways. Like it helps with problems like that, but again, it can't be like killing the business model of the thing that is using to train it. So I think that's kind of
right.
the key here, like you said, is figuring out that incentive structure.
Yeah. So what are some of the other things when we talked about optimizing, right? I mean, I
Yes.
think that there's a piece of that that is not only just deciding who you let in and so forth. What are some of the other ways and things that you're thinking about with the bots in terms
Yeah,
of
for
like
sure.
optimizing?
Yep. Yeah. So I think some of this will like take an evolution in your business and how you're exposing your data. We didn't actually go into this when we were showing your screen, but another thing we show is like your human LLM referrals. So which pages are being referred by AI models like ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, and then you can use that to make insights. Like one, getting more of that. This is just a new attribution channel or a new source of traffic that you can optimize for if you want to play the GEO AIO game. Um, also we saw that bot was hitting your terms of service and privacy policy. That was kind of like a toy example, but if you're a website like a big publisher, a big other website, if you see where the AIs are looking things up, that gives you insight into what your users are thinking, what content they think is valuable, and that can form your content strategy. It's like, should I write more articles about this area? What are people actually interested in? So again, that's the way you can use this to make your company
Okay,
better.
to see that. Do you I mean, I'm going to throw out a feature request for you, right? Which is to
Please,
tell
yeah.
me even more, like take that to the next level. So I can look at it and go, people are looking at a particular page, but I may not necessarily know why or what it was. Or I might go like,
Hmm.
how come this page isn't getting it? So I mean, I don't know what information comes along with the request. So
Yeah.
maybe that's something that's just not there. But obviously all of that becomes intel for us to again optimize from there.
Yeah.
So I agree with
Totally.
that
Yeah.
approach, right?
Yeah.
Like there's this whole part, like, and again, you could see it. Like Gavin, you and I haven't had that many conversations, but you can see how torn I am between the idea that like all of this content is being taken
Hmm.
and being used, and I'm not, by the way, getting as much traffic, than I was from search.
Right.
Again, one, I'll say this and happy to argue with anyone over this, right? Like we've thought of that as traffic loss, and I'm trying to more wrap my head around the idea was that was just like rented traffic. That was
Mm.
Google sent traffic to you and people came to you, but if they were never like if they don't choose you, they choose
Right.
something else.
Right.
Were they really your user? I think
Mm.
that that's like a new level of like publishers understanding their audiences and building up versus trying to get as big a number and not lose it, right?
Yeah.
So, but where I'm kind of going with that, right, is just that. So there's one part of going, I don't want AI grabbing all my stuff. But if you do, and you're going to send me traffic, then of course I want to do it as well, as good as possible. And I feel like
Right.
that's going to be like there's a real tension there of like, how do you do that? So
Exactly.
the key is
Yep.
analytics. The key is
Yep.
analytics, right?
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, that's the common denominator of anything, whether you're trying to block bots or help bots. If you don't just have basic visibility into what's even going on, like how are you expected to make a decision about anything? Right. What's measured gets managed. Like you need to see what this traffic is, and then you can start making, next steps about it. But yeah, so I think the optimization game that's going to evolve over time. I think, like you said, the incentive structures are going to evolve over time. It's changing all the time. Like it's crazy. I'll give you an example. So there was these new shopping protocols that were coming out. This is more in the e-commerce world, but there was these new shopping protocols like ACP, UCP, that OpenAI and Google were kind of championing. People were very excited about
Yeah.
those. They were setting up all these endpoints to help AI agents navigate through the website, or not navigate through the website because that's slow and cumbersome. Like we were just talking about, they're using like MCP endpoints to do it, which is way faster, uses fewer tokens. So that was a big thing for like a couple of weeks, and then OpenAI is like, oh, we're actually going to deprioritize that. So it's like people are just getting whiplashed by what is a priority, what's not a priority. Like, is this a real optimization? Will this help? So everything is very, very dynamic, and changing every day. So it's hard to keep up.
As someone who is trying to figure out what I automate next and how to again keep up on it and think about all these types of things, it is a daily chore to sit there and all the new tools and all the concepts of what you could do with agents to everything
Yeah.
else. It's and kind of just and this I think just to kind of maybe wrap up some of the thoughts here, right? Which is everything I'm thinking about. And actually, I was going to mention this toward the beginning. I kind of wanted to get going, Gavin. So I dropped one of my like thoughts of the week that I've been kind of really thinking about.
Mm.
Um, Somewhat related to what we're doing. I'll make the connection eventually. Um, but so many CEOs right now are telling their people, you need to use AI. Prove to me you're using AI. You got to use AI. And everything that I've done with AI, if you don't have your requirements, you wind up wasting a lot of time, certainly not creating something efficient and probably not creating something that's sustainable, because it's kind of like this journey. Now, again, I'll sit there and say for every weekend that I've lost to NAN and every other little thing that I've tried to do, I've learned in the process.
Yeah.
Anger management would be an amazing one for me to learn, but I haven't got there yet. But there's a piece of it of going like, you know, and sometimes I'll like succeed and I'll be like, I did it. And then it's like, this isn't what I needed. And so
Mm.
where I'm going with this is that everyone should think that way. And I don't think that that's like a huge leap. What I'm saying to everyone is to impress upon, the CEO of the company or whoever's making these directives, that there's actually a requirement piece to that is, so again, think of it this way as a publisher. Okay, you're telling everyone in the company to use AI. Great, I'm a writer. Boom. I'll just chat GPT all the articles I can come up with. Off you go. It's like, whoa, 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 hold on a minute. That's not what's going to be successful. You're not going to out AI slop with more AI slop. You need to come
Right.
out across this. You've got to be human. You've got to, it takes that work. So how do you draw that line? And that's the part that we need management to understand that piece and
Hmm.
understand what your unique value is so that you can express it, right? So
Yeah.
again, like, I'll use this a made up website here, pickleball.com. So I'm not mentioning a different site, but it's like, you don't play pickleball, you shouldn't be here. It's
Mm.
a really odd message to send out there, but it's a very human message to send out there so that you know that, like, hey, if I'm a love pickleball, I'm going to go into that site. I need to be part of that community,
Yeah.
which is better than seeing the chat GPT version of everything about pickleball, right?
Yeah.
That's the hook, right?
Yeah.
Which ties to understanding what's hitting your site, how it's being used, just even the volume to the extent of it, and so forth. So I really feel like, what you've created. Again, there's other solutions, but yours is very easy for me to implement. So I will give you that level of endorsement. It was like, boom, done. Next day, I was seeing numbers, right? So
Great.
like, it showed me stuff that I right now would not have any idea what to do with. The next big step is, do I do anything with this data? Right. And I think that's, as a publisher, we need to have more and more conversations about it and
Yeah.
discuss what that looks like and what are the licensing models going to look like? What are the other ways that we're going to be able to transact, and what does
Hmm.
that kind of look like? So,
Right. Yeah.
um,
Yeah. Yeah.
right. I mean, so that's some of my thinking in terms of like this kind of requirements and understanding what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
You hit this whole part of going as a company, I want to block all the bots. And you're like,
Right.
well, not all of them, right? You don't want to block
Right.
Google. And then it's like, shoot, which ones are doing what they need to. And so, I think
Right.
services like what you do are
Totally.
important. All right,
Yeah,
so
I
great.
think that's the
Well,
biggest piece is like the actionability, right? So you have all these insights and like, we have do have some products like this. I mentioned we have this like API of being able to identify bots. You can pair that with some licensing infrastructure that you can say, do you have X or not? Or like MCP funnels. If you want bots to go down this MCP funnel, like are they dropping off? Are they having crazy latency? So we are getting into that, but I would love feedback from the community of what would be useful to them because we're more than happy to build those types of things. Because if you think about, yeah, pickleball.com, maybe bots are coming to read all the text and use that to train models, but maybe they're also sending traffic to, if there's like a game organizer or there's events or there's experiences, like those are things that could be good to have AI bots crawl because that will disseminate the information that those things exist and more people will come to the website, more people will participate and like grow that business. So yeah, so that's a good example of why you would want bots and like why you would try to get them in AI responses and optimize for that experience.
yeah, Beeler MCP is not done yet, but we'll at some point we'll have that. We do actually have some questions. Oh, I should actually just add is Gavin is in the community Slack. So he's there for questions and like, I'll definitely be over time lofting things up, Gavin, for you to react to as we
Awesome.
again watch this particular journey and so forth. What about revenue optimization in content marketplaces? Once you do the analytics and the traffic, how do publishers get properly compensated? What incentive structures will win marketplaces? So yeah, Matt's asking the big questions of like, okay, when do we get paid? And
Totally.
Gavin,
Yeah,
how you
yeah.
gonna make that happen? Please.
Yeah, so we're not directly doing monetization. There's a ton of people working on this, from open source standards to proprietary companies. We're not doing it ourselves, but we are helping them. So our kind of special sauce, or what we bring to the table, is this whole agent database, this whole identity layer to all of these. So we're working with a lot of them to say kind of what I said, like it's a bouncer at the door of the bar checking your ID. Like if you're the right bot that should be accessing this content or should be accessing this licensed like marketplace, we can say this was from this bot or this wasn't from this bot. So that company who's doing the actual like market, the monetization or running the marketplace, they don't have to care about all the bots in the world and keep track of all of them. Like we can help them with that, and together, we'll be at the door, then they'll be offering all the services behind that. So that's kind of how we've been approaching that problem. And there's more kind of coming out in the next probably couple of weeks about partnerships we've been doing about that. But that's how we're participating in the monetization piece of this, because obviously that is like very important to this whole equation.
Yeah. Matt, we're certainly going to discuss this more, and in that, I'm of a mixed mind in terms of trying to be on all the marketplaces. There's just like a piece of that of going. It feels like history repeating itself again. Of like, I people want my content. I want to put it in a place, and I want to be driving some of what that value is. Now, what I'll say is getting out and interacting with these marketplaces. One, just the same as working with someone like Gavin. The first thing you learn a lot, and so you're like, wait a second, I don't know all the things I need to know. Uh, but there's also a part of like understanding what these transactions are going to look like, and they're just not that defined. I mean, the
Hmm.
marketplaces exist and they are putting numbers on things, but I kind of feel like that's another step to this, to doing that. And by the way, then doing the math of going, oh, cool, I mean, I'm not serving ads anymore to any of these people, but the licensing is paying for X amount or whatever. Like that, those, I mean, the math isn't mathing yet, but there's a part of going, you want to start to wrap your head around that as soon as possible, really
Yeah.
start to engage in that. Dan asked if you've got any case studies yet on the scale of, these optimization opportunities for a site.
Yeah.
Are you starting to see anything in the data that's telling you that you can in fact actually get more out by any of the activities?
Yeah, I mean, I can't share anything about a particular customer of ours, but for example, like I said, a lot of people are just blocking anything that looks like AI. It has the word AI in it, or it's coming from an AI company. A lot of the times, you don't want to do that, right? The things that are referring traffic to you are AI search crawlers. That's a whole category of bots, distinct from AI data scrapers or these AI data providers. And people were blocking those in their robots.txt. So I've seen this a few times where there's like no LLM referral traffic at all, and then they like fix the robots.txt, usually using our automatic robots.txt solutions. They could just set the category, and then that will delete some of the ones that they were blocking. That were the ones that would have sent traffic to them. So now those are unblocked. Now people are getting referrals from LLMs that are associated with those bots. So I've seen a ton of that because, like I said, I think just education on what these bots are and what the categories are is, very kind of a mixed bag, and that's what we're trying to help with this whole repository, like this big database of bots with all this information and some of the tools we build on top of that.
Yeah. What I've seen so far, and again, it seems like every day there's another report that comes out on this and what you're actually supposed to do. But it does seem like niche sites are faring better.
Yeah,
Again, if you're in the right category, then you're in the right spot for it.
yeah,
And I mean, but at the same time, the one thing is that we're no longer held to a 800 word article to show up in search. The rules
right.
are kind of changing, so start
Hmm.
answering people's questions, start coming up with the questions they should ask, and that, by the way, is probably better content than we've all been doing for some time. So, hopefully feeding the algorithm is actually feeding the people that want the content,
Right.
not trying to game the system. So,
Yeah,
but
exactly.
Gavin, this has been great. I really appreciate it. And again, I not won't be the last time that you and I are talking. And again, you're available to the community through our Slack, and obviously reach out to known agents and to Gavin if this is something that to solve. This isn't a commercial. More than it's just going like gotta know. And I will say this, like actually, I kind of should have led with this, right? One time in our publisher Slack, there was like, we should have a project where we start to identify all of the bots. And
Hmm.
I was like thinking like, how am I going to do that? Right.
Right. Right.
And then I went down this kind of path, and then it's like, someone mentioned your company and Dark Visitors. And I went to, and then saw your index. I'm like,
Yeah.
done, dusted. I
Yeah.
do not have to do that work. I'm free to
Totally.
do
Yeah. No,
everything.
I'm glad that's a valuable resource. I think that's kind of why it blew up, like in the first place, is because no one's done that work. Because it is hard, like aggregate all these things. It takes one coding, like I'm coding all the time, and then I have like an army of AIs who are like looking at all the traffic on the internet, like finding new bots, keeping track of all of them. So yeah, I'm glad that provides value. And
It's
yeah, if
just
there's anything we can add to that database in terms of metrics or granularity, like that would be awesome feedback as well. Like what would make that even more helpful?
Well, Gavin, I'm going to scrape that and I'm going to sell it to people. So
People do, yeah. Other repositories actually do scrape ours, so I'm in the same boat.
stop them. You got to stop them. All right,
Yeah,
so cool. Anyway, Gavin, thanks so much for your time. Thanks everyone for joining. We will have another AI live before the end of the month. Have not set a guest yet. Sorry, I know I got to get better at programming far enough ahead so I can tease it at the end of this. But obviously, the focus right now is Navigator New York and AI Publisher Response. And keep in mind, especially for AI Publisher Response, that event is for editorial, product, senior management, and operations. But the agenda is really built for kind of a team approach of those that are focused on AI, because the conversation that Gavin and I had is going to be there as well, and going to be very important for everyone to be there. So thank you so much,
awesome.
Gavin. Thanks everyone.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Rob. Appreciate it.
Hey, everyone have a great weekend.